What's going on, guys? My name is Joe Hurst. I am a freelance graphic designer and an educator on YouTube, and I build logos and help design brands for a living. And I've been doing this now for about a decade. And I started my YouTube channel to try and help people like you and other young creative professionals who might just be getting started or getting into the field, try and establish a foothold and understand what it's like to be in a creative professional environment. So my opinion is probably going to be somewhat controversial to other people's, or it might be well within the camp that a lot of other designers sit in. I sit firmly in the camp of believing that you don't need to have a degree for a lot of creative professions, graphic design, web design, photography perhaps also. I don't believe you need a degree. I believe you can learn these through mimicking others. However, it's gonna take you a while to actually build that creative knowledge. A little bit of backstory on me and how I became a self-taught graphic designer. When I first moved to the US nearly 10 or 11 years ago, I was exploring options while waiting for my social security number to come through. I couldn't go to school, I couldn't work, etc. until that came through. And I looked at applying to join a handful of quite prestigious art colleges here in Florida, one of them being the Art Institute in Tampa, which is where I currently reside. After seeing the type of curriculum and structure and lessons that they do with a couple of introductions and meetings, and then getting pricing for semesters, I quickly realized that there's no way in hell I was going to be able to afford that unless I got a job. And of course, catch-22 situation, I was looking to get my social security number from US government and possibly look at working. And I also couldn't go to school without any form of government ID and social security numbers where that all begins for an immigrant. So I was pretty much SOL. Long story short, I took it upon myself to start learning the actual, I guess, class fundamentals. I started doing everything I could to learn more about the field that I wanted to get into because I'd always been a very creative individual. And I realized that this was something that I could probably do whilst learning it. So as far as being formally educated, if you are a self-taught graphic designer, there's essentially no real limitation to what you can learn. Your own creativity and curiosity is gonna kind of drive and determine what you pick up and your own personal interests and stuff. So there's a lot more freedom with what you explore. Typically, I see that people who are self-taught tend to lean more towards being a freelance professional than a hired professional that works at a firm or an agency. As a self-taught designer, it's going to be a lot harder sometimes for you to put food on the table or to pay bills or to even just know what your regular monthly income is until you've established certain practices and principles if you go the freelance route. That being said, there's nothing to stop you from being self-taught and applying for actual office jobs, agency jobs, etc. If you have a formal education in graphic design, there's going to be a minimum level that you've learned to before you graduate. And there's also obviously going to be a minimum level of study or time period of study. Being a self-taught designer, you have the freedom essentially to learn at your own pace and to learn whatever you want to, whatever spikes your curiosity. Whereas being formally educated, there's a lot more control over what you do and don't learn. A formal education or college education is going to give you steady projects. I know some people out there might be scoffing or laughing when I tell them this, but the truth of the matter is, as a freelance designer, it's really hard, especially when you're starting out, to actually get regular work. It sounds horrible, it sounds really disheartening, but that's the truth. In favor of a college education or a school education is that quite a lot of schools nowadays are actually giving job placements after education after you receive a degree. Not all schools do this, but I'm seeing it more and more often now, especially in like advertisements and from what I hear. Lots of schools now, although it might not be the job that you want, they are trying to place their graduates into positions that they have been trained and got a degree to work in. So it's kind of a big step if you want to immediately get into that field. that you could get placed into a job that you may love or you may hate. However, it's likely that if you go to a school that does do job placements, you will probably get a job in your field. So that's a big check if you want to get into that field regardless, for being school educated or a graduate. Conversely, on the other side, being self-taught, you'll obviously have a lot more time because you're not trying to keep up with school projects or homework and certain deadlines that you have to meet, unless it's client projects that you're taking on in the meantime. But you'll have that time which will free up your ability to look for client projects and also focus on things that you want to learn. Whereas school is going to teach you from a very minimum level to somewhat of a medium level to a, I guess, graduate ready level. I'm not sure what that would be. But as a self-taught designer, you can learn at any level, and then you can explore any path and decide that, I don't know, for a few weeks to a few months, to maybe even years, that you want to learn about typography, print, typesetting, or offset printing, etc., and design for that stuff. Or you might want to be a jack of all trades and just learn everything, as far as like narrowing depth or expertise and particular things that you want to chase. School's going to limit you in doing that because it's going to teach you to a certain curriculum and to a certain standard. I believe for a bachelor's, it's like 3 or 4 years. If you're self-taught, you may not have that dedication or that commitment to always be learning, and you may give up after 2 or 3 years and just keep working on the same old types of projects and not push yourself to where you may have been educated in formal education. Okay guys, I hope this was useful and helpful for you. I'm not trying to say that one's right and one's wrong compared to being college educated and being self-taught. I personally sit in the self-taught camp. I don't believe that you need to have a college education, but I believe that some people do. Some people just learn differently. Everyone learns differently, essentially, but some people will probably benefit from learning in a more structured environment, whereas others, like myself, are more hands-on and they learn by doing. Whatever the case may be, and whatever you decide, just know that if you want to pursue graphic design, it's an amazing field to get into. You'll meet some amazing people whilst learning it too. And that whatever decision you make it, don't look back, and just go hell for leather, because it's an awesome industry to be in and you're gonna love it.